Welcome back to Light Talk, where the paranormal and the supernatural is a part of our everyday lives. We have a fantastic guest again for you tonight. I think you're really going to enjoy his stories. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, welcome to the show and introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Phil Hale. Most of my friends and coworkers and acquaintances, everybody just usually calls me the Phil Billy. I'm originally from Illinois, down here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Been down here a little over 8 years. Um, been interested in the paranormal most of my life. I've had a few weird things happen when I was younger. I think probably my most profound experience was when I was about 15. I had some pretty crazy stuff happen to me in a house out in Arizona that kind of really kickstarted my curiosity even more. And I've always kind of loosely done a little investigating on my own. I've had my own formal team for, I think we're going on close to 5 years now. We're the Supernatural Investigation Squad over here in Bowling Green. We tried to be the Supernatural Investigation Group, but apparently there was also another group already by that name in Mississippi, and they sent us a nice little email asking if we would change our name. And we originally named it after a Sig Sauer pistol company. So we're like, yeah, we'll change it. So we changed it to the Squad, and then we went ahead and got that copyrighted just so we wouldn't have any issues. Um, I've got a small team. Um, got a guy in Scottsville. He's a clairaudient. He hears stuff talking to him, spirits, different things. We got a lady in Louisville. She's sensitive. She just gets feelings when we go into places. We got another lady who's a Reiki too, and she actually communicates with all kind of things. She's actively communicating with spirits. Other things that she believes are extraterrestrial, alien in origin. Also, she speaks with other entities that are not so friendly, things that most people would probably consider like a demon or demonic activity, that kind of thing. So she's got a lot going on. And then we have a full Reiki master, Jennifer. She went to West Virginia. She's still kind of loosely on the team, but she moved. She's been doing Reiki and massage work for over 20 years. And then I've got another gentleman who's been in the paranormal field around 46 years, Bruce, and he is my demonologist. He's also studied hoodoo, voodoo, um, all kinds of paranormal. He's done a lot of investigating. He doesn't go on a lot of investigations anymore because he said it's real. He don't have to prove anything. He's had a couple bad experiences why he doesn't investigate much, but he does come with me if we get I would consider like a nasty case of a family being attacked or something very active in a home that's scaring people and they want help. We've also brought in Bishop Long out of Louisville on a case before. So I've got some other groups around Kentucky I can reach out to if we get in something really, really bad. I think that's most of my team. I don't have a big team. Um, but we'll go just about anywhere if we can help somebody, or we do like to go do some other things to hone our skills and try to do some things that aren't very expensive, go to cemeteries or local haunted abandoned locations, that kind of thing, or famous spots that are supposed to be active. And then we'll do a few pay to plays, like we've been to Waverly, Mansfield Correctional Center. And then the last couple years, we've been to Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, Alaska. Last year, we went to Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, went up to Maine up there. So, I mean, we're not doing any big trips this year, kind of scaling back a little bit, but I think we got a couple local places we want to do. We're looking at maybe going back to Franklin, Kentucky. There's a old stone jail, and then Bell Witch is on our bucket list. We want to go down to Adams, Tennessee, and check that out. But that's and Vinny. Vinny was the one that kind of helped start it. We call him Vinny Voodoo, and he's probably one of my biggest skeptics. Him and my girlfriend Camalee. She's usually stays out in the cars, more of my security system, and she also helps with people that are having real bad emotional trauma, that kind of thing, she goes and hangs out with them and kind of helps them with that. It's kind of like a grief counselor, so to speak. But her and Cindy both help with that. Cindy's probably my best one on the Estes. She's very sensitive when it comes to hooking up the headphones and hearing things come through. So, and we got Jessica. She's kind of new to the team. We're still trying to learn what all her abilities are, but she sees things, she hears things, very, like, I would say, a medium type person, psychic, very sensitive. So that's pretty much the whole team there. Then I've got my own podcast I do on Sundays. Try to get a guest. You were gracious enough to come on last week. We appreciate that. When we don't have a guest, sometimes we'll go live on location somewhere, um, or I'll just do my own podcast. And we have callers. We're a live podcast, so we appreciate people calling in, commenting. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. It's called Supernatural Sundays, and that's pretty much it. Just type in Supernatural Sundays, and we should pop up. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on X. We're on LinkedIn. I've also got a TikTok channel, but I think it's called like Supernatural or SIS 21. So if you look up usually any of our Facebook, TikTok, any of that will start with the initials SIS. So S period I period S. And then Supernatural Investigation Squad. That's what the SIS stands for. And our logo is kind of like the goat man from the Pope Lick Trestle up here in Louisville. So Vinny drew all that out, and we got some different logos we're looking at. I got like a little ghost that holds up a lantern, that kind of stuff. We also make some of our own equipment. I mean, we do the general cat balls, K2s, that kind of stuff. And I've got some other stuff I make. I got these, I call them spinner jugs, is what I call them. But it's sealed in a bottle with a cork, and I've got a coil, copper coil, and it goes through the crystal on the top, and then that goes through inside the jug, and then there's a spinner in there. And then the whole premise of it is spirit energy can come in and go down that coil, down that copper wire, and move that spinner inside there. And I can tell you, I had one of these I carried around for almost 2 years before it finally moved. First time I had one moved, it moved very, very slow and controlled. It was really weird. And the second time I moved, it was flickering. We almost thought it was like a candle flickering, but I'm like, we don't have any candles going. And it was on a concrete floor. And, I let them settle down for a good, half hour or hour before I even put a camera on it. So I'll usually put a light on them so I can see any movement. And I also met a lady, Get Batty with Brittany out of Pennsylvania, and she's what I called her telekinetic, but she called it ergokinetic. She could move that spinner with her mind, basically. Like, she'd put her hands around, never touch the jug, just she could move it with her energy. And she's also very sensitive around dowsing rods. She's sensitive to copper and iron, ferrous objects, but so her dowsing rods are actually stainless. So she was using one of these jugs here a while back. She was doing a training seminar with other ergokinetics and psychics, and so I'm making some new ones. Like, this one's got a pink quartz, and then I've got some like pink beads, and this is actual jewelry. You can put it on here and let it get charged up by the energy. Then you can wear it around later. That kind of thing. So I'm experimenting with a lot of things. Probably my most sensitive one I have has a Tektite on it. And the Tektite brings in universal energy, and I've actually got more reaction with that. But I'm experimenting. I've got quartz, I've got amethyst, I'm the Tektites, different things. Some other things I'm making are orgone generators. It's supposed to bring in positive energy. It's got the copper with the quartz in it, and inside a glass vessel. I'm working on some other ones that are going to have like an epoxy, and I'm still trying to get the whole epoxy figured out. So some of those will be wearable, or you could wear them in your pocket, but it's supposed to bring in energy. Even if there's negative energy around, it's supposed to help bring in positive energy. So I think we could all use more positive energy. So that's just some kind of stuff I do. We're actually working on some merch for our group. I've got some SIS coffee cups. I don't know if I got, yeah, I got one. We're doing coffee cup. That's our symbol. It looks like a little goat man in SIS. So we're doing coffee cups. We're gonna do some t-shirts. So I got some hats and stuff. So just getting all that started. We mainly just been out kind of investigating and doing our thing for the last few years, and I'm just kind of getting into that because it does get expensive, with gas and going to these different places. You got to pay to play. So, and not all of my team members are working. I've got a few that are retired or on disability, that kind of thing, and it's a hobby that they like to do, but anywhere I can to try to help supplement, with the cost. Then a lot of times we go to places we'll camp out because it's less expensive than a hotel, and we like being outside anyway because we're doing our cryptid thing. So that's another thing we do. We're supernatural. We're not pigeonholed into just ghosts. We like to investigate cryptids, UFOs, aliens, anything weird supernatural, we're there. We spent the last month with trail cams up in Bee Springs, Kentucky. A lady's she's having some activity here and weird stuff out behind her house, and so we got a family of deer and got a nice bird and a squirrel and some different things. No Bigfoots to report. We did get a nice footprint up in Mammoth Cave area, so we went to Land Between the Lakes. We went there. We've been there 3 times now, so we're probably going to go back over there. Land Between the Lakes has a little bit of everything here in Kentucky. You've got ghosts, you've got paranormal activity, you've got your dog man over there that's really big, and they've also got Bigfoot. Supposedly, Bigfoot's got the northern part. Dog man's got the southern part down by the Devil's Backbone area. So we're going to go back over there. But that's just kind of a little bit about us. I'm 55. Like I say, I probably had my first major paranormal incident when I was about 15. That's what really kind of the catalyst for me. Um, so we're going to keep going as long as we can keep going.
Oh, very awesome. I love what you're doing with the bottle. That is really a great idea. It's kind of like a little pendulum, huh?
Yeah, it's sealed, so the wind can't affect it. The only thing that's going to set that off is something paranormal or an earthquake or a tornado. And I do have videos of one actually moving, and that house was very active. The lady was actually what I would consider being under an attack. Um, and it's kind of, I mean, like you sit there and stare at the thing, and nothing happens, but it's kind of like both times it went off, it was like, hey, like what? They're like, look. I'm like, oh, it's happened like that both times, but um, very, very interesting because I wanted to come up with something that wasn't electronic, could not be affected by radio waves or, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Anything electronic won't affect it. And it's copper and brass, so it's really there's no iron, nothing magnetic. Magnet won't affect it. So, and I was kind of coming up like, well, if it's sealed inside a bottle or a jug, as I usually call it, it's not gonna it can't be manipulated, and if you break the bottle, you can take that cork out and put in another bottle, or and I'm gonna start making these, and I just started accessorizing them with the jewelry and stuff, and then just like a lot of people carry protective stones, like tourmaline, amethyst, your Apache tear, which is your black obsidian. A lot of people don't know you can take a piece of black obsidian. It looks like a chunk of coal until you hit it with a light, and then it's translucent. And I like the rough ones, the Apache tears. Supposedly, when they cried on the Trail of Tears, it turned into the Apache tears. But then you can get them tumbled too, and I've seen them made into arrowheads, different things. But so the whole thing, the whole premise of it is the stone. You want to use different, stones for that, and the jewelry just something I thought of. Well, you could charge it up with some energy and wear it around. People wear the protective stones. Well, this is just something else you can do with it. So
I love
I've
it.
got another I've got another device. It's called the Paranormal Paramoo, and we painted it up kind of like a Holstein cow. It's kind of a funny thing we did, like a joke, but it's still actually a piece of equipment. It's got cowbells on it. So, we're like, if anything can ring that cowbell, it's going to be serious. It's going to have a lot of energy. So, but we can't just have one cowbell. We've got two on there. So we've got more cowbell, like the Saturday Night Live skit with Christopher Walken, where he's like, we need a little more cowbell. So we've got our Paramoo, and I've made it dual purpose. It's got like little shelves so I can put REM pods on top of it. Uh, I can put K2's cat balls. I can hang other devices on it. I can hang pendulums from it, different things, for activities. It's like I got all kind of bells. I started out just tying bells to stuff, and we went to a jail, and every jail cell I tied a bell off all the bars, just I'm like, if something can move that bell or ring that bell, I'm going to probably believe that more than I am a false positive on my electronic equipment, because your cell phones, your Apple Watches, all that stuff, Wi-Fi can set it off. So I'm kind of old school when it comes to some of that stuff.
I like it. I like how you have it because nothing can set it off. I
Right,
love that. It makes it more believable if nothing can set it off, because as a viewer, you don't know what's around, you don't know
right.
what's been plugged in, you don't know if it's set up, those kinds of
Right.
things when you're just watching. So something like that would make it more believable and more real
Yeah.
than anything else. I love that idea. That is awesome.
It takes a lot to ring the cowbell too. So like we've
Yeah.
had the striker barely move a couple times, and but nothing's been able to ring it. But Cammy girl's already told me. She said if that cowbell goes off, I'm running to the truck. I'm out of here. She's like, I'm done.
What you need now is like a clear bell so you can watch it move.
I've got a couple, but they're like a colored glass. So I actually need to get more of a crystal, a clear one. I mean, like I said, I got one that's like a blue glass, and I got a green glass. And I'm kind of into antique dishes and stuff too. I'm always trading stuff and whatnot. One of my other hobbies, going to the auction and buying old stuff and flipping it, kind of thing. And
Right.
so that's yeah, a clear bell would probably be a good idea. You could see it moving better, but we typically put the camera pretty close so you can see the striker and everything. Do you
Put a camera
do,
underneath of it.
do you ever take your you ever take your pets out ghost hunting?
I don't need to.
I got I got my buddy here. He showing me his stuffy. I don't know what he's got going on. Cammy girl came to say hi too.
How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, I've got
Good.
my dog here at home that watches all kinds of spirits here.
Oh
She's
wow.
always looking at something within the house. Yeah, yeah.
So I take him to a cemetery, and if he sees something, starts wagging his tail, and there's nobody there, then I start taking a lot of pictures. But I got a cemetery down the road here from me, and I'd take him out there because it's a safe place. I can go out there every evening. I can turn him loose. He can run around. I don't worry about him getting hit by a car. I don't worry about him getting attacked by some other dog at the bark park. So because sometimes there's like aggressive dogs, and so I just let him run around. And I was getting these weird little like purple and green like little micro orbs, and they're always in the same spot by a hemlock tree. And I'd see them like a picture, and I take another picture, and they're like moving in each frame. They're like across these same three stones, and but when he would come around, they would disappear. And then when he'd go back to the other end of the cemetery, they would come back. And I just noticed on my pictures, I never get these things when he's around, and I'm not sure what they are. I'm calling them like micro orbs. They're so small, you have to zoom in to find them. And I've been going to go. I've been back like six times with my camera, and I tried a different camera, and then Nikon wants me to pay for some software to download it. So those pictures are still in my other camera because I refused to pay for another software for a camera that I already own. So it might be a while before I get those out. But so the pets, I think, there's a lady in Texas uses like Rottweilers, and she said if you're scared of a Rottweiler in life, you're probably still going to be scared of one in death. She said nothing. The Rottweilers aren't scared of anything. So she's actually training them, and I'm not sure how she's doing it, but I'll take him along sometimes on different, investigations when I can bring him. But so the same cemetery. My guy Gary, he's the one that hears stuff talking to him. He's my clairaudient, and it's not uncommon for him to just call me random out of the blue and say, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" He's like, "Hey, I got something in my house, or whatever." And he called me one night, like 1:30 in the morning. He goes, "I hope it's okay." I'm like, "It's always okay. What's up?" He's, "Well, I seen your green light was on your messenger. I figured it was okay." I go, "Yes, sir. You can call me anytime." He said, "Well, I got somebody here who wants to talk to you." I go, "Okay, put him on the phone." He goes, "No, they're not really here." I'm like, "What's going on, Gary?" He said, "Well, this guy, he's like, I think he's from the Civil War. He wants to know what you're doing out there walking around on his spot." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Whatever cemetery," he goes, "you've been going to. He wants to know what you're out there with all them gizmos walking around on his spot." And I said, and he goes, "But he likes your dog." And I'm like, where? And I've only had him at two cemeteries, and I'm like, okay, it's got to be this one. And I'm like, okay. So he said his name's John. He just wanted to talk to you, and I said, well, we're investigating. We're trying to find out where you go after you pass. And, thought maybe you'd still be hanging around the cemetery, and that's what we're doing. We're looking for answers. And then he says, well, he said he guesses you're all right. And that's all I heard. That was it. And then, so I didn't tell Gary. I waited about 3 months and I took him to that cemetery. I didn't tell him where I was taking him. And it's a pretty big cemetery. And we went all over and he honed in right on the spot where I'm seeing these little purple green things. And he goes right to that spot. And as he said, I think you need to put some equipment right here. He goes, there's a guy named John here who wants to talk to you. And both times he said John. I'm like, well, that's a coincidence. So we put the cat ball off. It went off a couple times. And he's Gary smokes. He's holding a cigarette. He's like holding it out at arm's length. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, John said it's been a long time since he had a cigarette. He wanted to take a drag off of this." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's holding the cigarette out. And I swear it looked like it lit up a little bit. I'm like, "It's probably the wind. It's got to be a breeze." And he's like, "Well, that was his thing." And so it was kind of weird. Every time I go to the cemetery, this same spot, I get a little action. So finally, one night, me and Cammy Girl was doing our podcast live from the cemetery. We went to that spot, and she finally said, "Well, what's the name on the tombstones? Because they're real old, they're real thin tombstones, or like maybe an inch thick, and it's very weathered, so it's kind of hard to see the names, that kind of stuff."
Right.
And I said, "Well, I don't know." And I'm looking, and I shined the spotlight just right, and I could read the name, and the last name was Doak. And she's like, "I'm going to the car." And she starts freaking out because my mom's married to a guy named Doak, and his last name's Doak, and we call him Digger Man, Ed Doak, and she's Donna Doak. She goes by Double D Donna now. So anyway, the I'm like, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And his name was John Doak. It was the same John all this time. So, the next time I went over to visit, I said, "Hey, I think your ancestors are trying to get a hold of you or something." But it was just a coincidence. The whole Doak family was right there, and we're still trying to figure out if they were from this area because he thinks he has some family from Missouri, but this is Kentucky, so we don't know. But that's all in that same cemetery. It all kind of ties together. Gary's got John twice. We read the stone; it was John Doak, and my mom's married to a guy named Doak, and that's all I know about that. It's I don't know. It's been a coincidence. The same cemetery, like I keep going back there and I'm like in the same spot. I don't get any action anywhere else in that cemetery. Just right there. I was like, okay.
Wow. That's really cool.
If she ever comes to visit or he ever comes to visit, I'm taking him there.
There you go. Yeah. Um, wow, that's really cool. I haven't been to a cemetery yet. I haven't gone out on my own yet.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. I haven't gone out on my own. I still have some things that I want to go out with somebody yet before I start doing things on my own, just because I want to make sure I'm doing it the safe way and, just
Yeah,
making sure.
I don't recommend it. If I mean, when you say going out on your own, are you talking like taking one other person with you, or just going completely by yourself?
Completely by myself.
So if I was going completely by myself, it's usually really somewhere close to the house or go during the daytime. Um, this cemetery is attached to a church, so it's actually a graveyard. So there's actually if I go down there, there's usually a youth group going on or something like that. They're out playing basketball, whatever. But there's some other kind of, I call them kind of sketchy places. Or some of the more popular places, they've done some things they shouldn't have been doing, like satanic activity and occult type stuff, and it's probably not a good idea to go by yourself. So there's some places I usually take a team. Some of the places we go, usually someone's packing, and or sometimes more than one person's packing, just in case. And we're not worried about ghosts or cryptids. We're more worried about running into somebody that doesn't want us out there in their area. So try not to go anywhere that's, we don't do anything illegal, or there's some abandoned places we go with some cemeteries. We'll call the sheriff's department before we go out and tell them where we're going to be in case they get a call. Somebody's like, hey, there's somebody out here with a flashlight traipsing around, whatever. So we recommend that. But I would say try not to ever investigate alone if you can help it, just for safety. And if you fall, get hurt. I I take safety pretty serious, but it's like I've got people on my team that have physically got ill, from a location, and I have to get them out of there.
Mm.
I've had Cammy at two different places, and she just started getting sick at her stomach. Had to get her out. Cindy, lady on my team, her sugar dropped on me one day. We're in a cemetery, and sugar just dropped. And if she's out by herself, it could have been a different outcome.
Right.
And so I've only got stuff with me, first aid kits and extra water and food, and we got a couple diabetics on the team, so I'm always keeping stuff for them, for their sugar and that kind of thing. So yeah, I recommend not going by yourself. Always take at least one person or a team, or even if it's during the daytime, let somebody know where you're going, about when you expect to come home, or get the Life 360 app on your phone, something, you know.
Yeah. I've even started kind of getting a list for when I do go out on investigations, just some emergency contacts for my husband so that if I come back and I didn't cleanse myself well enough and I start going weird, he's got some numbers that, hey, Dana's acting weird. She just went on an investigation. You
That's
know?
something we always do. Like before we leave a location, we're like, look, it's like talking to the invisible man over there. It's like, you can't come with us. You're not allowed to come with us. Sometimes if it's a really bad location, we'll say a cleansing prayer over everyone. Um, Done that before too. Um, but when you go, like, most cemeteries are usually pretty quiet, pretty relaxed, pretty chill places. We go to the cemeteries because we think, maybe a spirit might still be hanging around. I've watched some programs where guys clean tombstones, and they've actually had activity, like the spirit's talking to them and saying, like, thanks, cleaning my stone or whatever. He'll get a name of the stone he's cleaning and that kind of thing. And it doesn't cost anything. When you're trying to hone your skills and learning, cemeteries are a good place to go and just put your equipment out there and see what works, what doesn't. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Cat balls are pretty inexpensive. K2 meters are, these low level EMF detectors. These are getting a little less expensive. I've seen them going anywhere from like $15 all the way up to, 40 or 50. But the thing with these, your cell phone will set it off. You always want to have your phone in your back pocket or away from it or on airplane mode. If you're in a small location, always have these on airplane mode because it will set it off. Don't be wearing your Apple Watch and holding this in the same hand. That'll set it off. Or your smartwatch, your Fitbit, all that kind of stuff. And they're seismic. These have the shielding removed, so they're more sensitive than an industrial meter. So, like, I can tap it and make it go off.
Yeah.
So vibration will set it off. So I highly recommend if you're using a spirit box or any kind of device that you have a speaker going. Like a lot of times you'll put a speaker, hook it to your spirit box so you can hear it better. Don't put this K2 on the same table with the speaker going. The speaker will set it off. They're very sensitive that way. So, but they're not that expensive. Just get you a digital recorder and your cell phone camera, or just get you a regular 35 millimeter or any kind of camera, and so it don't take a lot of money to get started. But that's why we do some of these, different places, and sometimes we'll investigate like urban legends. Like we got the old Richardsville Bridge Road here. There's an old bridge. I think the bridge is over 100 years old, and basically the whole story is when you pull up on the bridge, um, there was a tragic event happened there. A lady died there, and if you put your car in neutral, something pushes you across. They don't want you to, the spirits don't want you to stay on the bridge too long.
Yeah.
And so we've tested this theory a couple times. We've went out and put the car in neutral, and it does roll across. And if you go on the other way, it'll roll backwards. And so I got to doing some studies and looked at it and took a level out there. The bridge is not level. And it's that way on purpose. Back in the day, the one lane bridges had a slope. So your old Model T, if it died, it wouldn't impede
Real
the flow
close.
of traffic. So you could roll on across and you could still get to town, So the bridge is not level on purpose. But we did get some activity. And Gary, my clairaudient, he says, Phil, this lady said she didn't fall. She was pushed, and she was pushed by her husband. And I was
Mm.
like, okay. And I don't know if there's any truth to what he's saying. It's just what he's hearing in his mind. And then he said, hey, she wants to talk to you. She said she likes your energy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he comes up to me, and me and my other team member, Jeff, uh, that's another member of my team, Jeff. And uh, we're holding the K2s and nothing. We hand them to Gary, and they start going to red. And so I'm checking out Gary. I'm like, you got a phone in your pocket? No. You got a flashlight? You got anything on you that's setting this off? No. And they're going to red, both of them. I handed him two of these, and they're going off. He hands it back to me, nothing. So I hand him to Jeff. He's like, I got nothing. We hand it back to Gary. They start going off again. We're like, what's going on? And he said, well, this lady wanted to talk to you. I'm like, okay, what's she want to say? And I was like, he's telling us what she's saying. We can't hear anything.
Hmm.
And sometimes I got recorders going. I'm trying to get EVPs. A lot of times I don't get anything on my equipment, but I'm just getting what Gary's telling me. So sometimes I can corroborate what he's saying. Other times I can't. So, but that's some other stuff we investigate. It don't cost anything to go check out an urban legend. And sometimes we'll do that anyway because everybody's like, "Oh, you got to go out there. You got to check it out." If it's a popular area, you're like, "Okay, we're going," and then we'll go out there. And so we were kind of surprised we were actually getting. Once we figured out the bridge wasn't level, we were surprised we were getting any activity. So,
Wow. Yeah, we have a railroad station here, and
mhm.
I've heard that there's a little boy that roams around there. So I haven't seen anything or haven't looked fully yet. Like I say, I want to wait until somebody's with me. But yeah, I'd like to go down there and just kind of check that out.
Anything to do with railroads or mining, we've had some activity. I got a guy in Utah, Bob Miller is his name, and he calls me from time to time. His wife has stuff messing with her, like flips with her hair or something, touches her or whatever, and he was kind of freaking out. And their house is in Utah, and they're right by where the railroad went through. the original where they had all the the Chinamen and all the immigrants helping build it and everything, and there could have been workers passed away there, but around those areas are usually kind of active. Some of those guys are still there, building the railroad, or digging the mine or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got lakes and a lot of trees and lakes around here. And I have had a couple experiences with cryptids, if yeah, that you would be interested in. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they were, but it's makes me go,
So
what was that?
I got some new stuff. I'm going to try some different techniques this year, and I'm going to do some pretty crazy stuff that nobody's ever even. I don't know if anybody's ever tried it or not, but we got some new ideas we're going to try. But a lot of the cryptid research, they go bang on the trees, or they go out and holler, or, that kind of thing. And we're kind of going to try something different. We're going to try to get them to come to us, and we're not going to be out there hollering or banging on trees. We're just going to kind of be out there, just kind of like somebody. A lot of the experiences you read about are people just out camping or they're out hiking. It's
Mhm.
all these hikers and campers weren't looking for Bigfoot, and then it just comes to check them out, or it comes to sneaks up on them, or it comes to warn them to leave the area, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we're going to try to use that premise, and then when it gets back to safety, one of the main things I'm concerned with is not that I'm going to run into it. I mean, we hope we see or find evidence of a cryptid, but my thing is I'm probably more likely to run into a wild pig, maybe a bear, maybe a mountain lion, a bobcat, something like that, but probably more likely to run into a wild pig. They're becoming invasive. They're coming into Kentucky now. Um, I can't tell people enough. Be careful. You going out to land between the lakes. The pigs are coming in there now. I got some bow hunters I talked to, and they've said those things come through there like a bulldozer. And you probably want to be carrying some kind of protection. Bear sprays, good for bears, that kind of stuff. I don't know if it works on pigs, but I know if you have, a firearm or something like that, you know, do your homework. Don't go out there with a BB gun. I mean, some of these things
Really get
can
them out.
be pretty deadly if you. Yeah, yeah. Just like if you go out where you're at, Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Alberta, if you're out there hunting elk, mule deer, that kind of stuff, and a lot of guys use a rifle. I can't stress enough what my grandpa always said: take a thumper with you, which would be a high caliber pistol, like 45, 50 cal, 10 mil, something to that effect. Because if a bear charges you, you may not get that rifle off. You may not get that thing off your back and unslung and ready to go in time. And he had a good friend of his that actually got attacked, and after the bear was done with him, the rifle was still strapped to his back, and he didn't have a thumper with him, so to speak. So some of these places we go just for paranormal, is you got to have protection. So I'm going to try some different things. I'm going to try my SLS, and my XLS device isn't working right now. If anybody knows anybody, recommend somebody could work on those. I'm having trouble getting the camera to work, but I'm going to try to use the SLS for cryptids, and I also want to do some lidar. I know the Expedition Bigfoot was using lidar, and they had some pretty good results. We've got a thermal, we've got a FLIR. Um, I don't have the money to get a really nice long range military grade FLIR. Like the TV shows have unlimited budgets, so they can spring for some pretty fancy equipment. But
Right.
we're hoping they'll come in close enough to us um, to get some evidence. I also have I saw it on. They got all these YouTube videos for camping equipment now. Amazon's got all this new stuff. They got like a little radar system that you can put around the perimeter of your campsite. So if anything comes near, it'll set it off. It works on like radar. And then we've got tripwires we can put out. We got some that make a little sound, some do a light. They've got some more fancy ones you can actually put a shotgun shell in, but I don't really want something like that going off. If I'm trying to attract a Bigfoot, I don't, or dog man or whatever it could be. So I just can't stress enough. Just be safe out there. If you're going out in the woods, there's stuff out there that don't play around. And people go missing all the time in these national parks. They're still trying to figure out what happened to them.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because I wonder if it's some sort of possible like UFO, or even lately in thinking more like if it is Sasquatch or something, because there's good and bad everywhere. Um, are they snagging it and going through a portal, or they're just walking into a portal and it's nobody, nothing that's taking them? They're just walking in a portal. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've looked at some of the cases where the grandfather was right there at the picnic table and he turned around and the kid was gone. And it's like, okay, where'd he go? And then he's the suspect, and everybody passes lie detector tests, and the parents are suspect, and they're like 50 yards away over here fishing, and they left the child with grandpa at the camp thinking he's safe, and it's like 8, 10 years later they're still looking for this child, so it's like he just disappeared. So if something alien, extraterrestrial, um, you know, something like that with an interdimensional portal, something like that, it's possible. Um, my other theory is there's just really bad people out there, and they just snatch up people and kids and traffic people, and you know, they don't have good intentions, and some of these kids might still be alive somewhere. Then again, they may not be, and there's just some really bad evil out there in the world, and some of these cases I think are other people doing it to other people. Um, Bigfoot is, as fast as they say these things, or Dog Man, or anything, you're dealing with supernatural stuff. So we don't really know how fast can this thing move? You know, what if it's a UFO just snatches you up and that's it? What if they have stuff like Star Trek where they can just beam you wherever? It's like, to me, that's kind of like interdimensional travel, going through time and space and matter. And so I don't know. I think it could be something supernatural. Then again, I think it could just be really bad people. That's why I say protect yourself when you go out anywhere, even with a group. Make sure somebody on that team has got security in mind. Cammy girl, she was a boxer for 20 years, so we're not.
Don't mess with her.
If it gets past her, then yeah, if it gets past her, we're gonna have to go to Plan B. But
Yeah, because I wonder about that myself, because we get a lot of them up where I am at, and it's what's what's doing this, who's doing
if
this?
you go in and it, the other thing is, if you went in a cave and you go very far in a cave and your light goes out or whatever, and you can't find your way back out, and if there's a flood and the water washes your body down somewhere deep and miles from anybody, they never find you again, since maybe some little robot will find you 20 years from now, and there's it's real easy to get trained, turned around in a cave. Once you get under there, everything looks the same, and then if you've been in there for a while and you're breathing your own CO2, you might get a little delirious. And you're like, okay, which way's up? Which way do we go out of here? So if you ever go in a cave, I always recommend take a piece of soapstone, and you can mark, an arrow, or as you go, mark your way so you can follow it back out. Take extra lights, extra batteries. Take a candle, torch, anything. If you have to have backups to your backups, have redundancy to get back out of that cave. Because we've got a lot of caves here, and it's a good place to go look for arrowheads, that kind of stuff, because they wash down in there from up above, and or if the natives were in there and they stayed in there, or they used it as a shelter. There may be, they sometimes you'll find arrowheads like they were making them, like a half a one or whatever, unfinished ones. That seems what I always find. My buddy finds the nice ones right next to me, but but we've got in
Yeah.
there sometimes, and we're like, okay, it's time to go home. Well, we got to go up to get out of here, and then it's like you don't realize you actually went under something and back up, so you actually got to go down to go back up, and then you start looking around, and it's like this rock looks the same, and the dirt looks the same, and you've been in this little 10-foot room for 3 hours digging, and it's like, okay, all right, and then try to go with somebody who's been there a few times, and they're like, no, man, this is the way. And you can always, if there's dirt, you can follow your footprints back out. But if you get in somewhere and it's solid rock and it's just water, you're like, okay, which way was the water running when I come in? You just always try to get a landmark, make yourself you get surroundings. And um, there's a cave here in town. A friend of mine's been in there multiple times. He heard a little girl hollering one night in there, and he's looking all around. There's nobody there. So we think there could be spirits in these caves. Like you got the Bell Witch Cave down in Adams, Tennessee. Expedition X was in here at Mammoth Cave, and the reason they went was there's spelunking crews that are going out with lidar and they're mapping new areas. Mammoth Cave's always constantly getting mapped, and they're finding new routes, new areas, and it's like over 300 miles long now with the cave expansion. It's
Oh,
that big, and so they're down there in a new area. They're like hundreds of feet down, and they're sitting there having a break, drinking a water, having a sandwich, and it's like there's four of them, and it's like a fifth person walks up, and they're like, "All right, who's that?" And then they just disappear. And this kept happening. They're having reports of another person that's not supposed to be there, like a shadow walking up, and then they've had incidences of people being touched, and they've heard drums, like native drums being played, that kind of stuff. So that's why Expedition X went down there, and uh, they got a shadow on film, and the lady got touched, and some other stuff. And it was about 3 or 4 months later, the lady that was leading the expedition, the actual Park Service lady that was leading the team, she I think she fell and got hurt down there, and
no.
so I don't know if she's better now or back to work or whatever, but it's very dangerous work, down in the caves. But so that's another thing around here we investigate. We were in a cave we were over east of London, Kentucky. It's called the Mullins Station Mine, and there's an old they were blasting out the saltpeter to make uh, gunpowder for the war back in uh, like Civil War, and then later on I think they still across the road still mine stuff for ammunition and whatnot there. But this mine had kind of been abandoned, and right next to it's a train tunnel. And that's another thing. You want to go investigate train tunnels or any kind of tunnels, you got to be very careful, especially if it's an active tunnel. This one still has trains coming through every so often. So I don't know if you ever watched the Stand By Me movie, but you don't have time to get out of the way,
Oh,
if you're in there. So we were in that mine, and we're way in the back. It's pitch black. I'm back there with Gary, and I've got the SLS going. And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "What?" And he says, "I think these guys were Chinamen. They think they were Chinese miners." I'm like, "Okay." And he said they want to say hi. I'm like, "Well, hi." And about that time, my SLS just shut off, and the tablet, the button's on the top. And I'm holding it on the bottom, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" And it's on a tripod, so I just set it there, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. We're in this cave. So I turn it back on. As soon as it came on, looks like a stick figure hovering there about 6 foot in front of me, just sitting there about 3 foot off the ground, like sitting Indian style, just hovering there looking at me. And I'm like, "What's going on?" He goes, "It's the Chinese guys." And I start joking around. I'm like, "You guys cooking a cat?" And they said, "We cook you a cat, fat boy." And so it's like they're joking with me, calling me fat boy and all this. And he's laughing, I'm laughing. About that time, this thing's hovering there like a sitting Indian style. It just like jumps on the wall like a wacky wall walker, and it crawled up. It crawled up the damn ceiling of the cave, and that was it. And I'm like, the SLS is sitting on a tripod. It ain't like I'm moving it all over and stuff. It's stationary. I'm like, what the hell? Some people think, oh, they don't work. They're false positive, and it does pick up on tripods and lamps and vacuum cleaners and stuff. And you just don't want to move it around a lot. I think it does better if you just set it on a tripod. Well, if it's not moving and something appears and it jumps up the wall and climbs up, when I get around things that seem to be more active is when it starts like playing with my equipment. Like I've had it shut it off a few times. The other thing I've had happen, like when you swipe your screen with your phone,
Uh-huh.
I've had stuff swiping my screens on that tablet, and I'm in the dark, and I'm holding it from the bottom, and I'm like, okay, who's swiping my screen? And there's nobody around. There's nobody there. So uh, when that happens, and I'm in a cave or somewhere, and there's no possible way there's nobody else there or anywhere near me, and it's just pitch black, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So
Yeah. I've used
um,
that at work and I've seen a few things like they're sitting on a shelf or kind of like Elf on the Shelf is what it reminds me
yeah,
of.
I
They're
don't
just kind of sitting
I
there
don't
or
trust the ones like the ones you use on your phone. I don't have a lot of
uh-huh.
faith in those because it don't have all the sensors that the actual SLS does. And but I've played around with some different apps. A lot of guys won't use any apps at all. They don't believe in them, trust in them. We try them out just as another tool. We don't know if they work or not either. But necrophonics, I've had some instances where we got a name and it corresponded with the spirit that had lived at that property, and we also had the Ovilus device come up with some information that correlated with that same person. So I've had that happen. There's a lot of other apps. The what's that one? I think it's like Spirit Talker or Ghost Talker or something.
Yeah.
I never did like that one, and it just says the same thing everywhere you go. It'll say demon everywhere you
Yeah.
go. It just says, "Oh, there's a demon here." I'm like, okay, well, the necrophonics actually sounds like different voices and stuff coming through, and I don't know if they work or not. It's just something else we try. But I have a little more
Right.
faith when I hear Gary say something, and it's usually right when we first pull up to somewhere. Like we pulled up to Perryville Battlefield, Perryville, Kentucky, one of the most bloodiest battles. And we pull up in the car, and he says, "I'm getting a General Bragg." I'm like, okay. And I'm a very skeptical person. I try to debunk everything. And I looked at him. I'm like, "Did you just Google that on your phone?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "It's General Bragg. I'm getting General Bragg." I'm like, I actually had him give me his phone, and I checked his phone, and I'm like, okay, he's on Facebook and he's talking to some lady. Whatever. I'm okay. He's not Googling generals from the Civil War. Walk into the gift shop, and I know the guy that runs the gift shop, and he's kind of the caretaker there. And I said, "Hey, you ever heard of General Bragg?" And he goes, "Yep, there's his book right there, Most Hated General in the Civil War." And we walk in, and there's a whole diorama of him when you first walk in, General Bragg. And I was like, "All right, Gary." But none of my equipment, nothing that night on any of our equipment said General Bragg or nothing like that. So, you know, the
It's
Civil War
interesting.
battlefield. Yeah, and they got a couple spots where the cannons they set the cannons up like where they actually were in the battle, and then we'll do stuff. We got a couple guys that'll put on Civil War hats and reenactments type stuff, and they'll be over there. Okay, we're firing off the cannon. They'll be like kaboom, then and they'll do that kind of stuff back and forth, and just trying to stir up some activity, see if we get anything. And we had
Mm.
one night something kept setting off it would set off a cat ball and then it would stop and set it off again. And we had several cat balls that just kept setting off the same one, and we didn't know if it was just something environmental or whatever. But anyway, he got General Bragg. Another thing, I don't know about how your psychic ability works, but like Gary, he'll get stuff talking to him, and I think it's a spirit every time. But we were going up to it was Hell's Gate Cemetery in E Town, also known as Casey Cemetery. That cemetery was named by Bishop Long out of Louisville for some stuff that happened to him and a priest one night. They had some black figures coming around, and this thing rose up, and there's people have been doing some demonic stuff out there. The cemetery's vandalized really bad. Tombstones knocked over, broken. And then people leave offerings. There's like piles of stuffed animals around the kids' graves, and it's just a mess. And so we were driving up there, and he kept getting the name. He said, Ernie, this Ernie guy wants to say hi to you. I'm like, okay. He says, Ernie said it was good working with you. And I'm like, and thinking of my past, do I remember anybody named Ernie? And then it happened like 3 times. It's like an hour and a half drive. And he's like, hey, Ernie says hi again. I'm like, okay. I'm driving. I'm like, whatever. And then we get there, and there's a black truck, and this husband and wife come walking out. They've been out there investigating. They're like, hi, just when, it's kind of slow tonight. It's starting to rain a little bit. We're going to go to another cemetery, but I just want to introduce myself. I'm Ernie Pack with Pac-Man Paranormal. This is my wife, Denise. I'm like, what did you say your name was again? He's like, Ernie. I'm like, okay. And well, I'm Phil Billy with Supernatural Investigation Squad. We're out of Bowling Green. He's out of Fort or not Fort. I'm trying to think he takes care of Fort Duffield. Trying to think the name of the town. He's right up there, West Point. He's West Point, Kentucky, and that's where he's out of. And he's got the Ditto house, and he's got a really cool video when he first bought the house of the bathroom door opening. It's pretty cool. That's Ernie, and we like Ernie and Denise, so they're pretty cool. And they do some stuff with Black Wolf Paranormal that down at Adams, Tennessee for the Bell Witch, and I think it's $400 or $500 a night to rent out Fort Duffield, but it's up there by West Point, and they've had some paranormal stuff going on because it was a Civil War fort, and they've also had some cryptid stuff going on. He had some rather large footprints. The stride was way bigger than like a human. So you might have a trifecta if you go there one night. You might get a UFO flyover, a Bigfoot, and a spirit. That would be the trifecta Holy Grail supernatural. They've had all three things happen there before. So
There you go.
but anyway, yeah, Gary was getting Ernie, and I'm like, so I go find Gary. I'm like, Gary, I just met your Ernie. He's not a spirit. He's a real person. I just met him. I'm like, this is too much of a coincidence because he's never mentioned anybody by the name of Ernie before. Uh, I don't know if you've ever had. I know you have stuff happening to you when you're driving to work.
Mhm.
So we're driving, and we get to a railroad track, and Gary's, back there. He has no control over it. He just stuff comes to him,
Yeah.
comes to talk to him. He's like, "Hey," I'm like, "What?" He's like, "There's somebody yelling for help." I'm like, I stopped the truck. I'm like, "Where? What's going on?" I'm looking around. He goes, "No, no, no. They're passed on." I'm like, "Okay." And we're going over a railroad track. I go, "Let me guess. Hit by a train." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "He's still laying there screaming for help." I'm like, "Oh my God. I can't imagine being there for like all of eternity, hit by a train and still screaming for help."
Ah.
And I'm like, okay, so we get going we didn't even get an eighth of a mile down the road. He goes, box truck. I'm like, excuse me, Gary? He's like, box truck. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't see a box truck. What is he talking about? He's in the back seat, and he's like, the guy laying back there that got hit by the train. I'm like, yeah. He's like, he was driving a box truck when he got hit. I'm like, oh my God. So we
Oh.
going down the cemetery. Yeah, and this was like 11 o'clock at night. We're coming back about, I don't know, 4 in the morning or something. We get to that same railroad track. I'd forgot all about it. We're going along, and he goes, "Hey." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That same guy's back there yelling for help still." I'm like, I'd forgot all about it. And I'm like, "Well, what did you tell him?" He said, "I always tell him to go to the light." And this is where his gift is different. Once they go to the light, he don't hear him anymore. He'll flat out tell me, he's like, "Look, once they go to the light, I don't hear them. They're gone." So I'm like, okay, well, different gifts work differently with people, their abilities, because like, you have well-known psychics like Teresa Caputo, John Edwards. They're talking to loved ones, and they're just bringing them in a gallery reading in a somewhere. Like they're tuning in your loved one wherever you're at. Which they're telling your family's around you, that kind of stuff. But it's like, I'm sure most of those people have done went to the light. I don't know. I'm not there, but the thing is, he can't hear him anymore. But other psychics can. So I don't know. But we get into some really interesting stuff with Gary.
That sounds really interesting about him too. Yeah, because I've helped a guy over and I haven't heard from him.
Yeah,
Yeah, once he asked for help, I was, go to the light, family's
yeah.
waiting. And that was it. That's all I heard was help me. And that was it.
He was talking to a little girl one night, and I said, "Well, why don't she go on?" He said, "She can't leave. She's waiting on her little brother." It's like,
Oh,
okay. He's just like matter of the fact, just tells you like like he's talking about going to McDonald's or something. Just he's got a lady passed away in his apartment, but his apartment he lives in before he's been there. I don't know, going on about 2 years, and we were trying to figure out who she was, what was going on. Well, there's another lady, neighbor lady knows the whole story. I said, don't tell us anything. I don't want to know the name. I don't want to know nothing. So right on one end of his apartment, we kept getting like he's got guitars, banjos, he's got a fiddle, and something kept going ding, messing with the fiddle. And we didn't say anything, like we don't know who this lady was or anything like that. So it was about a week later, Gary's sitting there and he got this song and he looked at his friend Betty, kept telling her, he goes, I got this song in my head. It keeps coming to my head. She's like, well, what's the song? He's like, help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. She looked at him. She goes, her name was Rhonda. And he's like, oh, he goes, she's like, by the way, she died on her couch right over there by that wall where your fiddle keeps getting played with. And she laid there for a while. She had a diabetic episode and didn't make it. And so her name's, we're pretty sure it's Rhonda still hanging around, but he got that song, Help Me, Rhonda, just out of the blue. And he's like, he hadn't heard that in a long time, but and then we were doing a live investigation there, doing the podcast one night. Because we're just like, well, let's just see what's going on at Gary's apartment. So we go over and he's playing his guitar, and we're having a little sing along. And we every time we played Charlie Daniels, uh, my cat ball would go off, and my REM pod would kind of tick a little bit, and we didn't understand what was going on. And the neighbor lady comes over, and she's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there?" We're like, "Well, we're doing our podcast. We're doing a paranormal investigation." She goes, "Well, I don't know what you're doing, but there's stuff falling off my wall in my kitchen." And well, we're like, well, when we play Charlie Daniels, our equipment goes off. And she's like, my brother's favorite artist was Charlie Daniels. I said, well, has he passed away? And she's like, yeah. I said, well, maybe he's maybe he's
yeah,
hanging around.
yeah,
We don't know. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I haven't had anything quite like that. I haven't had any, I should say, poltergeist happen to me. I don't know if I want to, maybe a little, um, but I have seen orbs and I've had a lot of different experiences now that it just makes
I'm
you
okay
think.
with a little I'm okay with a little poltergeist activity, but that's kind of what kicked me off into this kind of field was when I was 15. We were in Arizona and we were in Scottsdale, and my grandma was taking care of this lady, and I'm thinking she was the heir to Procter and Gamble, but she was a rather large lady, and my grandma took care of her until she'd passed away, and she had dogs. Like each dog after she died got a car. If you inherited this dog, it came with a car and like 25,000 for each dog. But this place was like, I think it's on the historical register, and I've been trying to find the name of it because I want to go back someday. But it was like an old Spanish style. I think it was like a mission or something like that. But it actually was like had terracotta roof, and I think it was brick. And around the corners of the property were like turrets, like around like a wall, like all the way around, and it had like where like guards could walk around or whatever. This place was huge. It had like an Olympic sized pool out back, but inside the house it had, I think it had 7 or 8 bedrooms and 3 different levels, and it had an elevator that only went to 2 places. It went to the aviary where she had birds on the top, and then it went to her private bathroom. And the private bathroom, you go in there and everything was pink. Like I'd never seen a pink toilet before. I'd never seen a pink sink. This is like 1985. I'd never seen, I just never seen nothing like that. Everything's usually white, or whatever.
Right.
And so when I say she was a large lady, I'm talking severely. Like you see those shows where Geraldo comes in and they have to cut the hole in the wall to get him out of the house. She was that big, and I don't know how she ever got up down the stairs or anything. But they had the elevator. I think that's how. But anyway, when you go in there, you lift the lid on the toilet. On the bottom of the toilet seat, they had a portrait painted of her, and she wasn't wearing any clothes, and it was tastefully done, kind of like some of that, you know, Renaissance art, but we're talking probably 600 pounds, or, something like that. I mean, it was just, I'm just guessing, but anyway, we came along after she passed away, and she was a collector of Indian artifacts. So she had all kind of pottery. She had like some of the clothing, and the thing that kind of freaked me out was the war masks. She had actual masks that they had worn into battle and that kind of stuff. And the
Wow.
whole time we were there, like over Christmas, and the whole time we were there, these guys were coming in every day from the museums, and they were appraising everything and putting tags on it so it could go to like Sotheby's or wherever they were going to auction all this stuff off. And my grandma was still there, just kind of taking care of the place and letting the museum curators come in or whatever. And so there were gates and wrought iron fences around the different parts of the house because she had like 5 or 6 dogs. Well, if she didn't want the dogs going in the bedrooms, you could just shut the gate. And then if you didn't want them going on the back porch, you shut the gate. So there was wrought iron railings with these gates in different areas. So I'd been asked to go up to her bedroom and get something. I don't know. So I'm going up there, and there's railing all around the top of the stairs and a gate. So I opened the gate and I didn't close it all the way because I was just going to come right back. So I left it a few inches away from closing. I go on to her bedroom to get something. I went about 30 feet and I just got to her bedroom door and I hear this horrible crash and this slam. And I turn around and that whole railing is just shaking like crazy. And I'm like, I freaked out. I hauled ass. I went back downstairs, and it took me a good hour to get enough nerve to go back up there and even try to check out what it was. And like I say, I was 15 at the time, and so my sister, she went with me up there, and because they heard me hollering, like, what was all that crashing and clanging and banging? Well, those
Right.
war masks were hanging right on that wall, right by that, and I almost felt like them things were laughing at me or something. But anyway, so we go back up there, and I open the gate and I close it. I almost close it and leave it like I had it, and it's kind of stiff. I actually had to push it, and it kind of just goes click. Nothing's shaking. Nothing's happening. So she's like, "Well, pull it back a little further." So I pull it back about halfway, and I push it a little harder, and then it shuts, and it just kind of barely jiggles. The only way I could get it to shake like it did, I had to pull it back further and slam it. And then when I did, it shook and rattled and did like it did. But there was nobody there when that happened. That's probably the most intense poltergeist activity I've ever experienced, and I mean, scared the crap out of me because it's just I wasn't expecting it. I'm just walking along and wham, and it's like uh,
Yeah.
sometimes you're not
Catches you off
investigating,
guard.
you're looking. Yeah, you're looking for something to happen, and then nothing happens, but it happens when you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
So that was probably what got me into the paranormal more than anything. And then later on, as I got older, I started getting equipment and, going on these ghost tours and ghost hunts. And I'd go, pay my $10 and go on the bus trip, and we go to the cemeteries and the speakeasies and all the haunted locations. And I'm out there with an infrared heat gun and my camera, and I got a tape recorder going, and like I said, it don't take much to get started, but uh, that's kind of what got me that that gate slamming, and I'm still trying to find the name of that place. It was in Scottsdale. It's on the historical register, and I don't know if the place is still there. If probably somebody else owns it now. Who knows if they're having activity? Because once they got all the Indian artifacts out of there, maybe all the native stuff is out of the house. Maybe the spirits went with it. Because these were war masks all along that wall, and I felt like maybe that spirit of that maybe he died in battle. Was still attached to that. But they had pottery there. Like I'd never seen 4 foot tall clay pots before. I didn't. The only other place I've seen stuff like that is at the Crazy Horse Monument in South Dakota. If you ever get a chance to go there, that place to me is very spiritual. I don't know, you just kind of get a feeling the guy that started the chiseling out the statue out of the mountain, that like there's the family still there running it. They're still hanging around. You get to go and see like they got their whole, like where their house was, everything, all the old furniture, everything's there. And but I've seen some stuff there that was very similar to what that lady had in her home. I think she was just an eccentric millionaire. Just she could collect that stuff because she could afford it because she could. But like you're saying, sometimes you bring stuff home, maybe you don't want to bring. Like I got these dolls and stuff, and I've been and you're gonna laugh. I'm gonna show you something I don't show most people. This is just some of my collection.
Oh my.
The one in the little plaid dress, that's Addie. She's the one that set off equipment about 4 times. And the rest of
Wow.
them, nothing, nothing. And I did have 3 more ventriloquist dummies, but I had a guy that really, really collects. He's really into ventriloquist dummies, so I let him have 2 of them. I got one more in the garage. I got to fix him. Ventriloquist dummies have a little like a rubber band inside their head, and that's how you move a lever or pull on a string and it moves their mouth. Well, once the rubber band breaks, their mouth won't move. So there's all different kinds. There's ones that are mounted on a pole, and then there's ones that are like it's sewn, like tied onto the body. And this one happens to be one that's on a wooden stick, and I have to grind all the adhesive out to get the head off to put a new rubber band in. So I had like I think 3 or 4 of them. So some of these dolls, I'll get them, I'll fix them up and clean them up, and I'll trade them to somebody, or you know. But I'm starting to get quite a collection, and some of them need to go to new homes. But the one that's she set off cat balls 4 times now, and none of the rest of them have set off anything. And I, if the cat ball goes off or whatever, so I may keep her. I don't know yet what. We may have to get some more equipment and see if we get any evidence of where she might want to go. We may
Right.
leave it up to her.
There you go. There you
But
go. Let her say where
yeah, I've
she
been.
wants to go.
Oh, she's like, Cammy's like, you got a problem. She's like, you didn't get another doll, did you? I'm like, yeah. Uh, I've got clowns, I've got dolls, I've got stuffed animals, I've got different things, and I've got a lot of different antique stuff too. I get that I think could possibly have an attachment. So if it doesn't set off any of my equipment, then I might send it on to a new home, rehome
Free
it.
home. There you go. There you go. Do you have like garage sales with all your unwanteds?
Not yet. I'm trying to decide if I want to have like a yard sale, or if I want to, take them to the flea market or do like Poshmark, put them on Poshmark or eBay or something like that. The one that's set off equipment, I could actually sell her as an object that has an attachment, but I don't. She's the only one so far, so I'm like, maybe she want to hang around here for a little longer. I don't know. We had one that played music. You would twist her little knob on her hind end, and she would play music. And we had her up at a auction house in Owensboro, and they had a lot of antique dolls and different things there. And we left her there. We're like, you know what? She fits in right in with all the. It didn't. She didn't set off the equipment or anything. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna donate her and add her to the collection. So she's up in Owensboro now.
So have you ever been to was it the Sally House or the Doll House where they have all the dolls? Um,
No, but I'd like to.
okay.
I didn't even want to
Yeah.
be mess with dolls for a long time because when I was a kid, we went to Disney World, and I don't know if you've ever been on that Small World ride, but it's like a
Hmm.
little boat ride, and there's all these dolls. Like every country is represented by different dolls, and they speak different languages. And we got on the Small World ride, and it broke down halfway through, and I think we sat there. I know it had to be an hour or longer, just and they played that song "It's a Small World" over and over and over and over and over. We got off that thing. I couldn't even look at a Cabbage Patch doll or nothing after that. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. So, but now she's like, and then there's a couple ladies at the auction. I was bidding against them, and then if I win, they get a little upset or whatever. But I'm like, well, you could have bid another dollar and got the doll, whatever. And then she's like, what? Why is a grown man getting these dolls? What are you doing with them? I'm like, well, I'm seeing if they're paranormal. If they're
And what
not,
they
then I'm
say?
gonna give away. I had one. She was brand new, still in the box, Victorian, beautiful doll,
Mm, wow.
and her name was Ina, Ina, and I happen to have an Aunt Ina, and which is not a very common name. So the last year for Christmas, I boxed her up and I told her I'm sending you something, and I mailed it to her. And I said, I sent her a little note. Here's your mini me, And she opened it up, and she was. So I saw her at her granddaughter's wedding, my cousin, and she was like, "So am I special?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Did all my sisters get a doll?" I'm like, "No." I said, "You're the only one." She goes, "So I am special." I go, "Yep." If we get a sis, we get a Sydney or a Sharon or a Rosemary or something like that. But so far, Ina's the only one that got one. So, yeah. So if I come across another doll with one of my aunt's names or somebody I know, I'll, you know, probably give it to them. But I don't know. I just thought that was a weird coincidence too. I think there's little signs, little things happen. There's coincidences. You just got to know what to look for, I guess, or just things happen for a reason. I think we don't know what the reason is. We don't always understand what the message is, but sometimes you figure it out later. Sometimes you never figure it out.
Right. Right. I love messages. I get those messages all the time. Um, right now, 22 is my number. I'm seeing 22 a lot more now.
My usually my lucky number's 13 because that's my shoe size. But I don't know. I don't have a whole lot going on with numbers, but like I've had birds come, that kind of thing. And then I've had stuff like kind of make a high pitched squealing noise in my ear before. I've had that happen. Um, I was out checking my neighbor's mail one time and I heard this noise in my ears, like a high pitched screaming. And then about that time, the dog come out, and I lived in Ohio at the time, and the dog was like trying to get me to chase it, which I was okay to follow the dog because I didn't want the dog out by the road either. Lived on
Mhm.
a busy highway and been a lot of accidents there. Whatever the screaming was, so closer I got to the house, the screaming went away. It got quieter and my ears went back to normal. I walked in the house, the phone rings. It was my neighbor's. Goes, "Oh my God, did you see that yellow car?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Well, they spun out in my yard after they hit neighbor Dave's mailbox." And I was just going out there to check his mail. And I didn't even make it to the mailbox when I got this screaming and the dog. I'm like, "Oh, I got to get this dog. I don't want him getting hit." It just happened that quick. That car went completely sideways and wiped out that mailbox and spun out in her front yard. If I hadn't had that happen, I'd have probably got hit by the car. So like sometimes things happen, some divine intervention. You don't know what it is. Anymore, I hear a screaming in my ear now, I pay attention. I'm like looking around.
Right. Exactly. I get that. I have ringing in my ears too. And sometimes I'm told I have tendonitis, but sometimes I'm like, is it really? So I'm trying to play with that now and kind of like
Yeah.
do some questionings and asking it if this is spirit, kind of stuff. So just kind of making sure what's going on. Is this me or not? Yeah.
This was something like I don't ever hear it, and then all of a sudden it was real loud, and and then I've had a few other little light versions of it, since then. But I'll go years and years and nothing. All of a sudden I get that noise. I'm like, all right, what's going
Right.
on?
Right. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it'll get really loud for me too, like really loud. It's like, and those are usually pretty short lived, which
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand is spirit. I
yeah.
understand
I
that is
think it is
spirit.
too. I
Yeah.
don't know what spirit, or I think it's like a guardian angel if it keeps you from getting killed,
Yeah. I
or if
know that
you're
one.
like you're getting ready to leave the house, you're like, oh dang it, I forgot my keys or forgot something, and you go back in, and then you get on the way where you're going, and like if you hadn't have went back in the house, you might have been in a wreck, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. People's heard that one from me too, but I'll tell it again because I just love telling my stories too. Um, Going to work one day, I was at a stoplight and I started hearing something telling me to get gas. And I was like, I don't need gas, the whole argument thing. Well, they took over my car and moved it into the turning lane to get gas. And it wasn't even touching it. It just went. And
like that song, Jesus Take the Wheel.
that's my story. That's the name. That's why I named it Jesus Take the Wheel Story. Exactly. Because they did. They actually took the wheel and drove my car into the turning lane before the whole car was in the turn lane before I'm like, oh, I guess I'm getting gas. But yeah,
Yeah,
because of that,
it's
I
not like
was,
it's not like a lane assist or anything because it was taking you off the road. So yeah,
yeah,
they got those
no,
things like
no, this
Super
doesn't have
Cruise
it.
now. Those like the cars have Super Cruise. If it gets up behind another car, it'll slow down, or if it thinks you're going to run off the road, it moves you
Beeps
back
at you.
in. Ding! It goes ding ding and puts you back on the road.
Yeah, it wasn't that. The car doesn't have that. I still have the car, but
Well, the car would have, if it had that, it wouldn't have been taking you to the turn lane. It would have run you back in the middle.
right, right. And this is a stick. I drive a stick and
Oh, wow.
it moved the car into the turning lane.
Wow.
Yeah. So you tell me how they did that. I don't know how they did that. Uh, but somehow or another, it went into the turning lane. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting gas.
I
And
guess we're getting gas now.
exactly. And I had no idea. I didn't know any of this stuff. I wasn't into this at that point. So I'm just like arguing. But, anyways, I ended up being 10 minutes late, but I did come across an accident.
Oh, wow.
Had I have gone straight, I probably would have been in that. I would
So
probably would have been part of it.
you had
So yes,
divine crash avoidance coming in.
yes, that was awesome. After I realized that, I'm like, oh my, yeah. But I was like, we sat and argued the whole time the light was red for me. And just before it turned green, they're like, enough's enough. I'm taking over now. Okay. Next time I'll listen.
You're not listening, Linda. Get over.
Right, exactly. Let
Oh,
me
wow.
take the wheel. Yeah. That was really cool, really awesome after I realized, it's like, wow, somebody was taking care of me. Thank you.
I'm I had a it wasn't I don't feel like nothing took the wheel. I just felt like I reacted super fast, and after it happened, I don't even know how I did it, but like I had a car, 2-lane road, and the car started veering over into my lane. So it got to the point we're gonna hit. and I run off on the shoulder, and the car runs off on the same shoulder I'm going. We're both almost in the ditch at this point, and on my side of the road. So I was driving a stick at the time, and I don't. It's like I downshift and hit the brakes, turned, and all in one move and went around that car and didn't hit them head on. I still don't know how the hell it kept from hitting them because we were. And then that car, when it went off in the shoulder, there was like a road in the ditch, and they turned off and went down this little farm lane. Like they were getting over, and they knew there was a road there in the ditch. I didn't know there was a road there, but they were on my side of the road. I'm like, all they had to do was wait for me to go by to turn. But I don't know if they were drunk or what, but yeah, it was one of them things that happened so fast. But I don't I don't feel like nothing took the wheel, but somehow I reacted super fast. And
It
the guy
helped
riding
you.
with me was like, he's like, "What the hell just happened?" He goes, "How did we not hit them?" And he's like, "I'm glad you were driving." I said, "I think we need to pull over and clean our shorts."
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. It has been some crazy rides going to work. I mean, seems like everything happens when I'm going to work, but it's kind of just before dawn, you know, and things are happening. And man, it's been
you're
a wild ride for sure.
you're in that witching hour out there driving around through that area. I'd be curious to see if it's on a ley line or if there's anything going on in that area that's in the past that maybe you don't know about, like something. Maybe there's a bad wreck happened there, or maybe there was an accident or some kind of tragic event, or like I said, maybe a ley line or something like that.
Yeah, I want to go out this weekend and go check out the one spot because that's where I saw the red eyes going across the street. So I want to go and check with that
Yeah,
and get a picture of where it happened and see if there's maybe even anything that pops up in the picture. I don't know, but kind of get kind of a gist of what's going on with that and um the distance and all. Yeah, just getting something with that. And yeah, because
I've got my
it was
I've
like a
got my own
mile.
theories on like
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got my own theories on like we've got a couple different rivers here in Kentucky where the water goes north instead of south or
Mm,
west or east, and it's a north flowing river and it's running through limestone. And we got a place in Cynthiana, Kentucky, the Roz Opera House. It's been there for a long time. They still have movies there, live performances, that kind of thing. Very active location. It's right on the Licking River, which is north flowing river and runs through limestone. Then when you get further north up by Cincinnati, you get to the right in it's up there by Newport and Covington area where that same river comes through there. Right there's where Bobby Mackey's is. You can see the river from the back of. You go out behind Bobby Mackey's, and the river's right there. You can walk right down the water. Both highly active locations on the same river going flowing north. And if you think about your Kentucky Lake and Barkley Lake, the land between the lakes is right between those two, and those are both your Tennessee and Cumberland River flow north into the Ohio River there, and that whole area has been known to be active. And so um, there's the places they call it dispersed camping, so you can stay in a campground. I think it's like $18 a night, something like that. They have hookups, showers, that kind of stuff. But they have primitive, what they call dispersed camping. So you can camp pretty well anywhere you want. I think it's only like $15 a night, something like that. But there was a location I was reading about different haunted happenings in Kentucky, and there's an old schoolhouse where a schoolhouse was, and people kept experiencing some activity. Like they kept seeing like a face looking at them out of the woods, and like the middle of the night they just start getting the creeps, and they see shadows and stuff, and they there's been several people try to camp there, and they couldn't even make it all night. They just pack up and leave. They get freaked out. So we went down there, found I think I'm trying to think, it's the Cumberland School. I think it's the name of it. And we went down there and, popped up our truck camper and everything, stayed and had the dog down there. And my whole team was supposed to come. And then, like, everybody kept canceling for what reason or another. The weather or something happened to somebody's car, or somebody was sick, whatever. So it was just me and Cammy and the dog down there. And I didn't really feel freaked out. I usually I'm not real sensitive anyway. So finally, I just, the dogs running around. I finally just get up about 3 in the morning. I'm walking around. I finally found the school. There's a little, like like a little concrete, like a little concrete post, like a obelisk kind of monument, a marker for the school. And then there's a well, and it's an old cistern, like stone cistern, and they've got some wire over it so people don't fall in it or whatever. And that cistern, there was a guy reporting every time he tried to get a picture down in that well, his camera wouldn't work. So I'm out here traipsing around at 3 in the morning. I found the well, I found the school. I'm like, okay, I'm not experiencing anything. And I was out there videoing all night, and I think one cat ball went off, and I got a plasma ball. And if you're familiar with a plasma ball, it looks like lightning, and it just kind of trickles around. You put your finger on it, and it'll ground, and it'll go to your finger. That plasma ball started swirling, and it made like a flame. And had that happen twice there. But other than that, really nothing. We didn't hear anything or get freaked out. We heard a dog barking and a buoy, like the waves smacking a buoy, but that was about it. It was like this looks like a nice place to fish to me. But we went back. We've been there twice and really nothing. And then we stayed over in the middle of the land between the lakes. Next time we actually stayed at the campground and went out exploring, and they got an old hippie bus out there. It's pretty cool. It's been out there forever and it's spray painted, and they call it the hippie bus. I think because it's got peace signs on it, but there's trees growing up through this bus. It's been there so long. So
Wow.
they've got a few things. They call it like weird stuff to see at Land Between the Lakes. There's an old house. It's like actually like concrete, like it was made almost like a bunker. It's called the Hotel California. Then they got the hippie bus, and then they got the old haunted school site. And then if you go down to the south end, is the Devil's Backbone. That's where Martin Groves has had his encounters with the Dog Man down there. So, and there's a couple different groups out actually doing little expeditions to go hunt for Dog Man. So we may collaborate and join up with some of those guys later this year. I think they're going to have a fall camp out thing they're going to do. So we may go do that. There's some metaphysical fairs coming up we're going to do.
Nice.
We went to Red River Gorge Bigfoot Festival last year. We met Dr. Meldrum there, and right before he passed away, and we didn't even know he was sick. He had cancer. We didn't know, and one of the nicest guys. Probably the expert on footprints for Bigfoot. He's the one that identified the metatarsal break and all that kind of stuff, and we were glad we got to meet him. And I don't know, just some of the, like, I bet Dr. Bendernagel, I've met him before, and I met almost all those TV guys and stuff. But the two scientists that really stand out to me would be Bendernagel and Meldrum, and I'm just glad I got to meet those guys. I've read some of their work, and the one thing that Meldrum hit home on was the fact that he's been all over the world studying Bigfoot reports, and so one thing he noticed, the type of footprints we find in America are almost identical to the type they're finding in Russia. And they're also finding some very similar prints down around the India area. And metatarsal break, very similar. And the other thing he's identified, especially over that part of the country, places where they still find tigers. Tigers have been pushed out into like the most remote areas of these continents because of human expansion. The tigers are going out in the middle of nowhere, but what they've been experiencing is wherever you find a pocket of population of tigers, they're also finding the cryptid, like Bigfoot prints in those same areas because they're being pushed out too, the habitat.
Right.
So he had slides showing the Russian footprints. He's went and studied with their scientists and our scientists, and they're almost identical. different sizes and whatnot, but you can look at the toes and the prints, and you can tell it was like the same one. He's got the same little messed up toe, you see it. But then he had someone from Australia, and every one of their prints was something completely different from the others. And he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on down in Australia, the Yowies, but all the prints are different. And the other thing that he brought up was the Yeti, your abominable snowman up in Nepal area. Those footprints all look like more like a gorilla, like a hand, like a big giant hand print. Their their footprints looked more like a gorilla, and then all the other ones from North America and Russia and India also had like the big footprint. But
Wow.
Australia, he's like he showed like nothing looked like any of our footprints, and they were all different. He's like, I don't know what's going on down there.
Wow. Oh my. Yeah, they're everywhere. I've got I believe I have a footprint in my backyard. I mean, it looks nothing like my husband's footprint or mine. And
Yeah,
I think it's just a baby because it's only like 12 inches in length, but it's like 5 inches in width. Um, so when I was seeing it, I kind of saw a bit of the toes, not a whole lot of the toes, but it was very off and nothing that I've seen with my husband or I's foot. And
he's gonna he's gonna have a hard time finding shoes with a foot that wide. 'Cause I have an
right,
H width, like I wear a 13H. Like most people, the biggest they've heard of is 4E. I'm wearing an H, and so I got a special order my work boots and everything. So
oh man.
I can't imagine a Bigfoot trying to get shoes.
Right. And this print here was like straight. I mean, from the heel, it was like straight. It wasn't like my husband's shoes has that indentation, right? So it wasn't his and it wasn't mine. So because my foot's not that big. But yeah, it's been quite a ride with all of that. Yeah. Well, we have been going for what, an hour and a half or so now? So
Maybe
probably.
my camera
Would you
froze
like
up
to
there
come
for a
back?
second.
Yeah. Would you like to come back
Yeah,
on?
I'd
I
come
would
back
love to have you back.
anytime.
Yeah.
I'd like I'd like to do a panel with you, like get at some point get like Gary and like maybe have my whole team sitting here and you can interview all of us.
Right.
We've
I
been
would
wanting
like
to do
to.
that for a while. We've been trying to find somebody that'll do it with us, and we just like I don't know if they could all tune in separately, but we get on Microsoft or not Microsoft. It's Messenger. I think it's like Facebook Messenger. So every Wednesday night at like 9 o'clock, we do our group meeting and we just get on Messenger. It's pretty laid back and we talk about places we're going to investigate, or if we just went on investigation, we'll talk about what happened and what do y'all think and evidence and where do we want to go next. And, if I got a new piece of equipment, we'll talk about it. And I've been, uh, incorporating them with my evidence review. I figured out a way to upload it and then send it to them on Messenger. So we can all get on the same Messenger group and they can pull up and review evidence. And if they find something, they'll tell me the timestamp. Then I can go back and cut it out, edit it, post it. If we find anything that we think's even remotely paranormal, we'll put it on our YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. So we've got our Facebook uh, podcast page, Supernatural Sundays, and then we've got our SIS Supernatural Investigation Squad group page. And I just post a lot of stuff to my group page, and I don't. I just try to do the podcast mainly on my podcast page, and I've got a couple other people that contribute stuff there. But usually, if I'm just scrolling and I find a cool video picture, or if someone else sees something, sometimes I'll put it on there and be like, "Hey, what do y'all think?" Or if there's something coming up, an event like a uh, paranormal convention, a paracon or a cryptid con, or like last year we had the Goblin Con over here in Hopkinsville, and I want to go back to the Goblin Con this year. It was really cool, the Hopkinsville Goblins, and it was based on an actual account of a UFO alien encounter, and so I'll post that kind of stuff. Or if there's like, say there's a location coming up, like, hey, we're offering investigations. You want to come in, and we got one coming up. It's like $50 a person, that kind of thing. So I try to plug other people's locations or other groups or anything going on in the supernatural. Stuff going on right now with the disclosure with the government, with the UFOs and all the scientists going missing, stuff happening. So uh, I try to keep everybody informed. That's kind of mainly what we do with my podcast, is try to just inform everybody. Here's the latest Bigfoot video. Here's the latest alien stuff. Here's what's going on with the government. Here's what's, we got some weird blobs coming out of the sky in Washington, that kind of stuff. We talk about everything supernatural. So a lot of it is just try to inform everybody. Here's the latest, and we critique it. I'm like, what do you think? You think it's real? You think that's fake? And people will call in and are like, we think it's fake, or we think it's, that happened to me too. I think it's real, so, and there's a lot of AI stuff. Sometimes I'll just put it up and I'm like, look, I'm pretty sure this is fake, but it's hilarious. So we try to have fun. I don't think, we take our investigating very serious, but I try to, if I can make somebody laugh, I feel like I've did my job today. I like helping people. I like helping making people laugh too. I feel like if you laugh, maybe everything kind of loosen up a little bit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some people get so intense with the investigating. It's like, man, you need to calm down a little bit. It's I went on investigation here a while back, and we cleansed the home, and my guy left, and I hear they were kind of a young family, and I hear this screaming and hollering. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I go in there, and they're like, the light don't work. Something blew out the light bulbs. And they're looking up and they're flicking the switch, and I'm like, all right, let's see what's going on. It was a ceiling fan. I just reached up and pulled the chain and the light come on. And they all looked at me and they're like, oh my God, we're so dumb. I'm like, no, I said, you just need to quit freaking yourself out. Like, I try to tell people every little bump in the night you hear is not something paranormal.
Paranormal.
It's not always,
Right.
there's usually an explanation. And after they did that, I'm like, you guys, you just need to calm down a little bit. And at that point, they're laughing, because they're like, oh man, really? I'm like, yeah, really.
Yeah. Realize how tense
So
they were.
yeah, I try to tell people, I'm like, look, we don't mind coming out, but you really need to check everything out. There's usually an explanation. But yeah, I'd love to come back on, or maybe have my whole team come on. They'd
Yeah.
probably they'd like that. Or if you ever get out this way, or if we get out that way, we'll go check some of this stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know. Yeah, let me know and we'll
Definitely.
keep in touch with all of that because that would be very interesting to be and do. And yes, I would, get all of you guys together and we can do a show with all of you and I can do
Meet you up at the
individually with
Stanley.
them
You're
too.
pretty close to the Stanley. I wouldn't mind going back there. Another place I want to go out there is Rawlins, Wyoming, the prison.
Yes, yes. That's not too far away. I don't think
We
that's too
get
far away.
we went to the Mansfield where they filmed Shawshank Redemption, the movie where they filmed it. We went there, and down in Solitary is where we had some experiences down there. Got a little active, nothing too intense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's stuff that happens in downtown Loveland. There's stuff that's happened up in Fort Collins that happens. I went on a tour up there and I did catch something in a mirror.
Oh wow.
So that was kind of cool. So yeah, I caught that and had green in a couple of my pictures. Like the whole room was green, but there was nothing except for our cell phones. But the
Wow.
whole room was like lit up in green.
I don't think I've had that. I've had red, but it was usually somebody's red light. But some of these cameras have a red light comes on. Some of my full spectrum pictures look kind of purple sometimes. Um, I've been taking a lot of full spectrum pictures, and I have never got anything with that. I've taken that thing all around the world. Everywhere I've been, I've taken full spectrum pictures, and I'm still waiting to capture something. But I always tell people don't get discouraged because people see all this stuff on TV and they're like, "Oh man, we're gonna go out. Something's gonna happen. We're gonna get evidence." And they go out there like, "Man, nothing happened." And they're like,
Mm.
"What the heck, man?" And I'm like, it, most of the time, nothing does happen. Nothing happens. That's you just try not to get too discouraged or try not to fall asleep looking at your evidence review because I've had to rewind stuff a couple times. It's like, oh man, did I nod off? I don't know. I might have missed something. Roll it back. Uh, it can get pretty boring trying to go through your audio and your video, just sitting there listening for something or watching a screen. So I was doing all of it myself. So now I've kind of incorporated my team. They're like, well, we'd like to watch some evidence. I'm like, okay. So I
It's
sent it.
yours.
They're like, it took 3 days to upload everything, from one night's investigation. And they're all like, uh, I've watched two of these now and I haven't seen anything. I'm like, well, you got 17 more to go.
Keep going. You got
Yeah, keep going, man. Let me know if you find something.
Oh, yeah, that could be pretty tough for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah, but once you find it, it's like it's,
I need to
I'm
roll that
sure it'd
back.
be awesome.
Well, sometimes I'll think I'm seeing something. I'm like, oh, what is that? I roll it back. I'm like, oh, somebody walked in the room into their shadow. Okay, it's nothing. And
Yeah.
I've had stuff where I thought it was nothing. I looked at it, I'm like, nah, that's a leaf. Or the cemetery. I'm like, it's a leaf. And Vinny's like, no, man, I don't think it's a leaf. I'm like, man, I think that's a leaf. So we magnified it, and he's like, that's a nun. I'm like, what would a nun be doing in an old country farm cemetery? They're usually around the big Catholic churches, and they're in the cities, and they're not out in a rural farm area. And he's like, dude, that's a nun. I'm like, it does look like a nun. And then when I blow it up more, I see her habit, and she's got like a thing around a necklace there, and a rosary and all or whatever. And I'm like, so then I start checking out. About a mile down the road is the Bethlehem Academy, run by the Sisters of Loretto. And they ran
Oh,
that school for like, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And I'm still not sure why there would be a nun at that cemetery unless maybe one's buried there. But I was told that a few died there on the property and they buried them out back. And then when they quit running the school and it became owned by, private citizens, they exhumed the bodies and took them back to Loretto, Kentucky. They were Sisters of Loretto. So, but I'm like, well, maybe not all of them got buried there, because there was one. She died from accident with an ox. Back in the day, you used ox to farm with oxen. They pulled wagons. They did, and I don't know if she was like hooking it up or if, it kicked her. I don't know. Something there was an accident with an ox and she died. The other one was a suicide, and she was having a romantic relationship with like a farm boy and got caught. And she was so, distraught and whatever. She went out on the front porch and hung herself. And so those are two actual accounts. I know they died on that property. But I'm like, maybe they took her and buried her down in the local cemetery instead of putting her, maybe out of disgrace, or maybe she's just going down there to visit somebody. I've got a theory. Some of the stuff you find in the cemetery, and I'll leave you with this. I think are people visiting. So my mom takes care of two cemeteries, and she has a gentleman that comes every Tuesday out to see his wife's grave. He comes every week about the same time after lunch comes out. She's got another guy comes out on Thursday every week. It's like clockwork. Been going on for years. She's got another guy. His wife just passed away about a year ago. He comes out every day, and if it's nice, he'll just sit out there by her grave. But if it's cold out, he sits in his car with the heat running, and he'll be out there for like 4 hours at a time. And
wow.
she finally got a hold of his kids and said, "Hey, you might want to go take your dad to lunch or come do. He's taking this pretty bad. And they're like, "Well, how do you know?" And he's like, "Because he's out there every day for hours and hours." And they're like, "Oh." And I was over there a couple weeks ago, and it was like, oh, there he goes. When we go drive by to go take care of the cows, come back, he's still out there. And then there's this other guy, she goes, well, it's Tuesday, it's his turn. And I'm like, the same guy? She goes, yep. So my theory is maybe some of these people are still coming to visit other people after their past, because we were in a cemetery and we got the name Amelia, and there was no one there buried by the name Amelia. And then that was where I got my first EVP, and we've been trying to get EVPs for about a year and a half. I'd never got any. And I said, well, hello, Amelia. And I got this hello, like a whisper, like a hello, a class B, perfect class B EVP. I was pretty excited because I two different instruments picked it up. And
Nice.
then, so we're like, well, what are you doing here, Amelia? What's going on here? And it said visitor. So we looked up the cemetery records. No one by the name Amelia is buried there. It's spelled with an A or an E, because you can spell it two different ways, like Amelia Earhart, that kind of thing. So nobody there is buried by that name. And she said visitor. And then that same night, I had a recorder die, and I was standing in the middle of the cemetery, and it was full moon out. I'm like, my recorder died. And one of my friends, he's like, I'm going to start taking pictures. Since your recorder died, I go, okay. So he's taking all these pictures. He goes, hey, I think I got something. And I'm like, okay. So we rolled it back, and it looks like a shadow, like of this, like a tall lady standing there looking at me with like a hat or whatever. And then I said, take like 5, 10 pictures. Make sure it's not a reflection. It is a full moon tonight, whatever. And the next 5 pictures, there's nothing there. It was just that one instant, got lucky and got a picture. And it looked like a shadow of this lady standing there. Same cemetery. I said, well, that's got to be Amelia. So I called her Amelia. I put it on my TikTok, and probably one of my best, as far as a picture, I'd say it's probably our best evidence. And it's on. I got that one on my Facebook and TikTok, but if you look it up, the one that Amelia, and then like TikTok, I'll put like music to them and stuff like that. Probably the scariest thing we've ever ran into out investigating was a copperhead snake up in Mammoth Cave, up in a cemetery, climbing up a tree. It was eating cicada bugs, climbing up. We gave it a wide berth, but I did take a picture of it, put the Copperhead Road song on there. Thought that was kind of fitting, but anyway, that's probably the most scary thing that's happened since we've been investigating. That, as
I've
far as
got a
to me, I've had other guys have some stuff, but
yeah. Real quick, like I got a picture off of one of my apps that shows like a red light where their spirit at.
oh
And
wow,
one of the pictures that I got with that was a picture of a nun.
oh wow,
Yeah, it came out as a nun. As you were saying, she has the hat on, it goes all the way down to the
the habit,
ground.
yeah.
Yeah. And you can see that she's like almost like she's got her hand out with a rosary in it. It's really a cool picture.
Well, this was in Casey's cemetery, the same one where we went and Gary said you want to talk to Ernie, and uh, the same cemetery, the one that Bishop Long calls it Hell, named it Hell's Gate, and I've got it like zoomed out so it just looks kind of like a leaf, and you're like, well, what? That ain't nothing. And then when you zoom it in, you can see her really good. And I've magnified it and tried to, I've edited it a few times and
Right.
tried to get it, you know. And once you kind of change the contrast a little bit, it's like, oh my god, it really looks like a nun. So yeah, but that was right at Bethlehem Academy, E Town, Elizabethtown. We call it E Town. The Casey Cemetery, also known as Hell's Gate, all on the same road, all right there. So one probably considered one of the most haunted locations in Kentucky is the Hell's Gate, right? And as far as cemeteries go, and then um, there's one in Louisville that's supposed to be pretty active too. A lot of different people's been too many people buried there. Like they quit marking the graves and just kept piling them on top of each other, kind of thing. Yeah, bad, really bad things happen there. So, but probably the most haunted place in Kentucky is considered Waverly Hills up in Louisville, the old tuberculosis hospital, and then I'd say probably Octagon Hall's up there, probably number 2 or 3 on the list, and then I would put Ross Opera House right up there in the top 3 too, because we've been there a couple times and had some really interesting things happen. So
Awesome. Awesome. Whew. Thank you. Thank you
thank you.
so much for being on here. This
No
has been
problem.
awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
So let's get together. Let's do this again, and we'll get the whole team and get them on here and have their individual stories too. It'll be awesome. That'll be
I don't know
awesome.
if we're gonna. I don't know if we're gonna do anything this weekend or not. We're going over at Memorial Day weekend, so happy Memorial Day, everybody, and
Yes,
thanks to
everyone.
all of the ones who served and fallen for us. And uh, I'm gonna head over to Illinois to my family reunion, and we always have that on the Memorial Day weekend. And so it. Uh, one year, the whole family went out to the cemetery. We went out one night, so. Uh, And there's an old jail in Benton, Illinois that we go to. The last site where they had the last public hanging in Illinois. His name was Smiling Charlie Berger, and he was smiling all the way up to the end. And he was part of the Shelton gang. A lot of people's heard of Al Capone and around the Chicago gang, but a lot of people didn't know there was a Southern Illinois gang too, the Shelton gang. And I don't think they got along too well. And then there was the St. Louis division that kind of worked with the Shelton gang. And then there was another Peoria division that I think they ran them out. They didn't last as long. But anyway, that right, they'd have the gallows there still. And then there's an old like a Model A car there. And we've investigated outside. I've been wanting to go in the jail, but I just can't get in there when they're having it when it's open to investigating. But that's something where I'd like to go inside. But they actually have tunnels there under the town that went from the courthouse to the jail. Some of them are part of it's filled in, but there's a jewelry store there, still has part of the tunnel. He let me go check it out, but they would transport the prisoners through the tunnel because back in the day they go by with their Tommy guns. They'd have drive-by shootings and whatnot, and it wasn't safe for the jailers or any, to transport them back and forth. They target, and so they actually had a tunnel to
Yeah,
take them
Fort
back and
Collins
forth.
does too.
Yeah, so I'll be over there this weekend. So
Awesome.
cool.
Well, go have fun and tell your team hi. And I look forward to meeting up with you guys all again.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if anyone else out there has a story you would like to share, email me, lighttalk423@gmail.com. And we will talk with everybody next time. Bye.
Awesome.